For a bug's life, a practical and halachic demonstration. I'm delighted to say that we have two experts in the field, not one but two. Just in case one of them doesn't find any bugs for you, the other one definitely will. But I'm sure they're equally capable and talented. But they bring two different sets of skills and overlapping as well. But we'll talk about each of them in turn in a moment. I just want to say that it's a pleasure to have everyone here at Kesher this evening. I can see a number of new faces as well as people I know who have been here in the past, and it's again our pleasure to welcome you here for our program tonight. The thank yous would not be complete if I didn't also mention Ruthie. Rebbitzin Ruthie, who is working hard in the kitchen, as is frequently the case, and to provide an outstanding program for us here tonight. And it was her brainchild, and I'm delighted that it has come to fruition here this evening. The story is told, and I just want to say to my brother, Rabbi Hillel, especially, that this I heard from Dad from the Bracha many years ago. You may remember the same joke. A fellow goes into a restaurant and he orders a bowl of soup, and to his dismay he finds a little tiny interloper swimming around, and he says to the waiter, he says, "What is this insect in my soup?" So the waiter says, "I'm very sorry, I'll get the manager's son." So the patron says, "The manager's son? I would like to speak to the manager." So he says, "The manager doesn't know one bug from another. The son is the entomologist." Whether we will get into the entomology of identifying exactly which genus and species the thrips and the arthropods derive from is questionable. I don't think it's so much our concern, as I say, from the scientific standpoint tonight. But as I'm sure everyone in this room is very well aware, in addition to the aesthetic unappetizing nature of consuming insects, there is also a Torah prohibition, more than one Torah prohibition in fact. And because they are so small and in many cases well camouflaged, it requires special attention and actually a measure of expertise, as we will find out tonight, in order to ensure that the fruit and vegetables that we enjoy and that we serve our families and our guests are free of insects. I remember hearing that until the 70s and even 1980s, the problems of insects in produce was less severe than it is today. And I don't know for certain that's true, but that's what I remember hearing, because the insecticides that they used to use, I don't know whether anyone here is old enough as I am to remember DDT. DDT was a very popular insecticide that was very widely used in the agricultural industry, but it was found to be carcinogenic and unhealthy in a lot of different ways. And I remember bumper stickers that said "DDT bugs me," and it was part of the early environmental campaign to make DDT illegal. And so it has been in America and no doubt throughout much of the world. And as a result of the fact that these very aggressive and very effective insecticides are no longer in use, so the more gentle, kinder, more sort of humane approach to insects allows them to flourish in ways that possibly we don't benefit from. I don't mean to be cynical about it, because of course the environmental impact of some of those aggressive insecticides is very negative, again, for people, for animals, and for the ecosystem itself. So the industry has found a balance that works for them between profitability, legality, morality, and all of that. But unfortunately for us, and certainly for the kosher consumer, the assurance of insect-free vegetables falls partly, at least ultimately, I would say, on the consumer and on the end user. I just want to mention that I said in the 60s and 70s it was less of a problem, probably in the 80s as well, but now it perhaps is more of a problem. It probably is also true to say that the kosher consumer has a more sophisticated awareness today of these kashrut issues. And again, possibly in earlier decades, these matters were literally overlooked. You know, a little green thrip, you know, what, if you can't see it can't hurt you that much. But in halakhic terms, although there is something to that, if it's actually cannot be seen, it may be not a problem halakhically. But if it can be seen, if you know what to look for, then of course we want to be sure to avoid it. So to a degree, we may be more alert and more aware of these issues, which possibly in an earlier generation we were more sanguine about it. And I think this again is to the credit of our community and certainly everyone here tonight. Just want to end with one last comment, which I remember reading. They say that the Chazon Ish, the great halachic decisive who lived in Israel, in Bnei Brak, the last decades of his life, the Chazon Ish would not eat a food, especially vegetables, if it was dark. If there wasn't enough light, he wouldn't eat it because he was concerned that possibly there may be insects there. And even though no doubt his wife was very scrupulous in checking them, but Bnei Brak in the 1950s was probably not an insect-free zone, and therefore he was maybe concerned that between the kitchen and the table, something may have flown in. So we find certainly among the great people, halachically meticulous people, an awareness of this issue, and therefore, to go back to where we began, it's a great pleasure for us and an honor really to be able to welcome all of you and to welcome two experts in the subject who will be doing the presentation tonight. Just to say that Marcus Aluf is a friend of ours going back many years, and he has had many years of experience in the kosher food service industry. He now is a chef at Novolino. You may have heard of Novolino. And in addition to his culinary talents, he also has a role of a halachic shomer in the kitchen at Novolino. And therefore, to the extent that one can eat at Novolino with a good halachic basis, it's certainly in part due to Marcus's vigilance. In fact, he's not there right now. I can't quite figure out how they're getting by with that. But anyway, we're not in Novolino. We're here with Marcus, so we're definitely okay.
We're getting one of his recipes.
And we're getting one of his recipes as well. That's right. At no additional cost. My brother, Rabbi Hillel Simon, also has years of experience in the kashrus field. He is a senior kashrus supervisor for the London Beth Din, and he has been to many restaurants, probably all the restaurants that people here may have frequented at different times. Hillel has been behind the scenes in those restaurants to ensure that the highest kashrus standards are maintained. Hillel oversees the caterers as well, and certainly when it comes to checking for insects, this is an important part of his work. And therefore, between Marcus and my brother Rabbi Hillel Simon, we have certainly a wealth of halachic as well as practical experience to show us how to ensure that our fruit, vegetables, and all of those 5-a-day campaign things that we're all in favor of can also be enjoyed and consumed with halachic precision. So that's enough from me. I'm not sure which of the two is starting. Yeah, you're
Excuse me, can I just, there are a lot of men that need to get in, so maybe if we put the men's chairs that way, then people can, the men can, the extras can stand
There is a little bit
behind.
more space.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we can move, if we move the chairs facing the tables, then we
You're
can
this
put
way. We're this way
your
around.
chairs, and then we can put some men standing, is that okay? It might
There's
make
also
some room.
room.
Ruthie,
Are there any
it's not
chairs?
gonna make
How
a
many
difference.
chairs do we have?
It's not gonna make a difference.
You don't need Marcus and Rabbi.
Well, there's one space extra, but there's
Do you
also
need a seat? No, you don't need.
No, I don't.
area. There's more chairs. There's. Good evening. Right. Thank you to my brother Rabbi Rashi and Rebbe and Ruth inviting me to join with Marcus in this presentation. I'm going to streamline the halakhic part because the practical is the most visual and vivid and long-lasting and important, etc. The fact that we're full, this place is full, means you all want to join the ranks of people who the Torah has great praise for, as we'll see in all of my references. I know there's other things happening, but obviously you all feel that getting the kashrut right is crucial. So just, as I say, in short, talking about the status of bugs in Torah law. Some of the things you have here we're not going to dwell on. Just notice some things that we don't allow and why. That's a demonstration of one of the methods which Marcus will be showing you. Fine, but I won't be dwelling on those. You can just take a glance, or later, I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to see them. So how do we know that we shouldn't eat bugs, and that it's a big deal? There are various verses, but here's one of the demonstrations. We have a reference to sheretz hamayim, right? Creepy crawling things at the bottom of the ocean, right? So we can't have anything that's sheretz hamayim. We can only have fish with fins and scales. all those little things creeping on the floor. We can't have. That's called sheretz amayim. The same word used for the bugs you see here. The word sheretz, the creepy crawly, it applies across a range. You have, this is first of all sheretz amayim. Then you have the sheretz asheretz ala aretz, the things that are creeping and crawling all over the earth. The insects, most of the things like centipedes. The commentary Rashi mentions in Chumash, the centipedes are an example of that sort of thing. We have the halech al gachon, the snakes, right? Which are halech al gachon, maybe worms as well, probably the snakes. And marber aglayin, that's the one with many legs, that's a centipede. And then the Torah says, Al teshakzu et nafshotechem b'chol asheretz asheretz. Don't make yourself vile and disgusting by eating these things. Right? I am Hashem your God. V'yitkadishem v'yitem kedoshim ki kadosh ani. You should be very holy. It's quite remarkable that the same thing, right, that we tend to find disgusting, bugs in the West, in the Western cultures, we tend to find bugs disgusting. If you show a Western chef the bugs which will be passing around, they will find it disgusting, even if they wouldn't be willing to put effort into getting rid of them. As Marcus will show you how much effort we put in, they will find it disgusting in their face. In other cultures, they won't. I've heard the expression, we'll eat anything from the bottom of the sea to the top of the heavens. Right? So not everyone finds it. And I would suggest, Rashi could probably confirm this or not, but the Western culture, the Judeo-something culture, probably is affecting how people feel about bugs. It could well be because of the Torah that we find bugs disgusting as part of our Western culture. It's not automatic to the human being to find these things disgusting. Fine. The Torah says it is disgusting and it will make you impure. And if you refrain, if you take care not to eat the bugs that are found in each item, to take care, you will be holy. Hashem says this, like, I'm holy. By refraining from these things, you are making yourself holy. This is one of the things in Jewish life spelled out, a lot to do with Havdalah, distinction between one thing and the other, that actually makes us holier, sanctified people. The work we do in checking and cleaning is not mundane at all. It's part of making us a holy nation. I get this idea from time to time. I don't know if any of you had this hope, is it dust enough to kill the bugs? Right? Maybe some people harbor that hope. Is it dust enough to kill the bugs? It's not. In fact, you might have an advantage in the process if they're alive and they're scared off by the soap and the salt that we put in and swim away. It might be better than if they're not alive. So no, it doesn't make a difference. Alive or dead, doesn't make a difference. You could branch into other parts of halacha where it can make a difference, but in terms of bugs, it doesn't. Again, we're streamlining this, dwelling on a few important points. If you imagine a mashgiach using a magnifying glass, they do sometimes, but I would never ever say. What's that? Yeah. What I wouldn't encourage, and I had people thinking, we'll be really careful, we'll be really smart, they take out a big magnifying glass and they're checking immediately. But in that case, you'll find things that you shouldn't find. Only things that you can see with your eyes, right? You have to examine to find out, is that a bug? Something which can only be seen with a magnifying glass, you're allowed to eat. My father, alav hashalom, would often point out that a camel biologically has split hooves. It's only the Torah says it has to be cloven through and through, shesa, that it's going from top to bottom, that we don't need a camel. But if you would ask a scientist, does it have split hooves? It would say yes. There's just a bit of padding on top and the bottom. Basically, he's pointed out that if you can't see it, right? The Torah judges things by what you can see. In terms of kosher law, generally by what you can see. So the camel, you can't see the split hooves. It's not kosher. A bug which you cannot see, And your average water, if you take a microscope, you'll find it crawling with things. If you can't see it, it's actually kosher. The magnifying glass comes in when you're not sure what this thing is. Fine, so that's some of the London-based dayanim examining things that came up. That happens from time to time, not every day, but from time to time, especially if we're thinking of getting rid of something completely, like watercress and wild mushrooms. So we think very, very hard and take great care before we say, this can't be used. Other organizations feel differently, but we think very hard and examine very carefully before we say, you can't use that. If we have, there's a very good reason. Right. We don't dwell a whole lot on which kind of bug it is. Right? I would prefer not to take things for granted, and when we check the water, as you'll see, the principal thing we do is check the water. I don't like to dwell too much on what you're looking for, because I'm afraid you'll look for one thing and not the other thing. Still, just an example, what strawberries might have. There's green fly, insects that camouflage their form against the body of the fruit. It implies even more to the younger green fly with their thinner limbs and bodies. Primarily found under the green leaf, and may also be seen on the actual body of the strawberry, hiding amongst the seeds. So that's why I don't know if you have strawberries. We do have strawberries. Hopefully we'll get to them. But you definitely take off the top of the strawberry, the green, and the flesh just underneath the green. One of the most important things to do. Then we're washing it carefully. We're always washing carefully and checking to see if our washing has been effective. It's good to have some idea, but not to think, all right, I'm looking for something green, anything else doesn't matter. What's that?
Soap, salt, or wine that are discovered.
Soap as a pre-wash and salt to actually check if the soap has worked.
But in terms of colour, I mean, it can be red, it doesn't have to be just green.
Oh yeah, it could be any sort of color. Fine, here's a very important point to distinguish. Many of you may have heard of checking things in the light, a light box or against the light, and all that. That's very good. I wouldn't want to discourage anyone from doing that. At home, you have 7, 8 leaves or 10 leaves and a salad. Definitely check against the light. Do your best. It's very good. However, we found with who knows of how many thousands of washes of vegetables we've done collectively, that the water test can catch more things. Because bugs, for one thing, are very well camouflaged. It's called, my father would say, I think, biological mimicry. The bugs like to look like the leaf, and perhaps even the leaf likes to look like the bug. Right? Mushrooms especially, I think Marcus would concur. You find lots of little things around the mushroom that look like bugs, and it's really dirt. And then you have things that look like dirt, and they're really bugs. So that's why the water is a powerful thing. Also, there are things with lots of crinkly parts, really sophisticated. And can you really see inside every fold when you're checking? Maybe not. So the water has that quality of touching every part. So we suggest it could be better, yes?
On Shabbos, can you wash it in water if you know that it's probably going to be bugs and you're probably killing them?
That's a very good question. Now the dayanim, the London-based dayanim, said we are allowed. We don't actually check anything but strawberries, as it happens, as a policy, but they say our process is allowed on Shabbos. I think one could argue, we could debate about it, but they do agree it's all okay. And that's just another example. Just because it's pre-wash doesn't mean it's insect-free. This is M&S. We actually prefer M&S to other brands, but nonetheless, we definitely check it with the salt, with the salty water, to see if any bugs come off, because they certainly can. Their standard is higher than others, but it's not perfect, certainly not perfect.
The salt is sufficient.
Well, generally we pre-wash things that are problematic with soap, and then we check with salty water. But,
Rabbi Hillel,
yes.
does that include bodic frozen vegetables? Do they need checking or not?
The only brand we recommend of frozen is Eden. Otherwise,
He means the ones with the pension.
yeah. The only brand that we suggest is Eden. Some frozen things are so hard to check, it'd be pointless for me to tell you to check them because it does fall to pieces. So I got to be a bit narrow and say we suggest the Eden. The other ones we have carefully checked and found bugs in the other brands. So with our very careful scrutiny, I don't mean throughout the system, but we have a specialist who's checked very carefully, and he found Eden to be by far the best brand. Cadastia also has the same policy. So the other ones I can't really say. I'll tell you to check them, but maybe it's not necessary, and maybe it falls apart and it's just impossible. So I'll just stick with the recommending the Eden brand. Right, I think we're ready to progress to Marcus's demonstrations of all our methods here, our many items.
Can I ask something? Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
You said that if we don't see something, then we are allowed to.
That's correct. If it's
So
not
in the
visible.
frozen vegetables, it's very difficult to see.
Now that's a very good question. What you're suggesting is, if it's so full of bits that you can't possibly see it anyway, that should be okay. That is an argument. There is some argument to that. That's true with things that are pureed. We do allow, everyone I think allows pureed raspberries, where raspberries we would suggest never to eat at all, but when a company purees it, we would allow, or raspberry jam, where the company has pureed it. It gets into halachic niceties, but they pureed it, we do allow it. At a stage where it's just full of bits, if you spend enough time, you could find it. So it's difficult to say that's impossible to see. It's just tedious. So I'm hesitant to say that's okay.
Because also a person with a less visual accuracy should see less.
I think we do our best. Thank God now we have eyeglasses if we need them.
Yes.
There shouldn't be a vast difference
an old
between.
person sees
Yeah.
less. I mean, I have
Yeah.
glasses, and my daughter has glasses, but she sees
She sees
so
more.
sharp.
I think we just have to do our best. Really, Hashem Torah wasn't given to angels. We have to do our best, and that's, everything is in Hashem's hands. Yeah, sure, he's happy. Should we pass? At what point will we pass these out? Yes.
Yeah, you said we can buy like pureed raspberries. What about with them?
No. There's a difference. If you're asking, I'm happy to explain. The difference is. Yeah, the question was, if I said you can buy pureed raspberries from a company, but you can't do it yourself. So what's the difference? There's a concept called Mivatel Isur Lechatchila, which is to take something which you know is prohibited and purposely obliterate it. For instance, if you want to take a drop of milk, I don't know why you would want to, but whatever the reason. You want to take a drop of milk and add it to your chicken soup. And you'll say, a drop of milk will have no effect on a big pot of chicken soup. You may have heard the idea of batel b'shishim. The taste of the milk is lost in the chicken soup. It's true that when it happens accidentally, it's lost in the chicken soup and it's kosher. But if you did it on purpose, throw it out. You can't do it on purpose. The raspberries are so infested. Blackberries are equivalents. I checked once a box containing probably 10 or 12 punnets. Right? My computer doesn't know the word punnets, but we use it all the time. It must be somewhere in the English language. But those small containers we call punnets. So I found 9 out of 10 or 9 out of 12 punnets of raspberries. When I put them on a plate, 5 to 10 bugs crawled out. Right, so they're so full of bugs that it's almost like taking a bug and pureeing it yourself. You can't purposely do it yourself. The company has done it without any knowledge or care or concern with Jewish people or life, then fine, it's gone. But to do it yourself is like purposely trying to obliterate the bug. Okay.
Right. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to Kesher the bug. Okay, when you're checking, you really need to have good light. That's the first thing. You need to have good light when you're checking, and you need to have white bowls, preferably whiter than the clear bowls. But for this purposes, you'll be able to see what I'm doing in the bowl, so that's why we have these type of bowls. You look at the veg when you're doing it. you have a good look, so you'll get an idea whether when you do your first wash is if you need to put soap for like a pre-wash. Sometimes you just put salt in the water and you just can do a check. But like when you're doing things like lettuces and leaves, they can be very, very infested. So it's a good idea to put just a little bit of soap into the water with a little bit of salt. So when you're doing things like broccoli, for example, what you need to do is really you should put them on a flame just to heat it up a little bit, just to warm them up, and then you tap it on a white plate, and then you will see if anything comes out. If you see there's bugs coming out, you know that the head is infested. If not, then you just go further then to put it in water with salt. So what I'll do is I'll just take a couple of florets.
When you say heating, and
Well,
you
just over the top of the flame. You don't actually touch the
Not
flame.
touch.
Just on top, just to get a little bit warm. Just tap it so that it wakes up any bugs, and then it's easy. Then you just tap it on a plate, and then you'll see if anything comes out. So you'll just take a few florets. You just cut off the florets like that. You put a little bit of salt in the water. You don't need a lot of salt. When you put in salt in the water, salt will destroy a lot of the vegetables you're using, so you don't need a lot of salt. So you just put a little bit of salt in the water. Always have a clean bowl to start with. And then what you do is you put your florets into the water.
That's from.
Yeah, I will get to that.
What do you mean destroy the vegetable?
Sorry?
It says destroy the vegetable.
No, if you put a lot of salt in, say like leaves, very, very soft herbs, lettuces, things like that. If you put a lot of salt into that, then you're just going to